The gunshot echoed through the condemned mansion's hollow bones, and Marcus Vale threw his children to the floor as plaster rained from the ceiling. His war dog, Ghost, lunged toward the shattered window, teeth bared, a guttural warning ripping from his throat. Outside, voices shouted in Italian, car doors slammed, and the night erupted into chaos. 7-year-old Lily whimpered beneath her father's body. 12-year-old Daniel pressed his back against the rotting wall, eyes wide with terror. This inheritance was supposed to save them. Instead, it had painted a target on their backs. And somewhere above them, hidden in the bones of this crumbling estate, lay a fortune the Cosa Nostra would kill to claim. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The cold bit through Marcus Vale's jacket the moment he stepped out of the lawyer's office. But it wasn't the December wind that made him shiver. It was the weight of the envelope in his hand, the one that had just turned his entire life upside down. Beside him, Daniel adjusted his backpack while Lily clung to his free hand, her small fingers trembling despite the gloves he'd bought her from the thrift store last week. "Dad?" Daniel's voice cracked, hovering between boyhood and something harder. "What did the lawyer say?" Marcus stared at the address, scrawled on the paper inside the envelope. Blackwood Estate, 1247 Ravenna Drive. The name alone sounded like something from a Gothic novel, not a solution to their problems. He folded the paper carefully and met his son's eyes. "Your Uncle Vincent left us a house." Lily's face lit up. "With rooms and everything?" "Yeah, sweetheart. A real house." What he didn't say was that Vincent Rossini, his late wife's estranged brother, had been found dead 3 weeks ago in that very house. What he didn't mention was the lawyer's warning, delivered in a hushed tone as Marcus signed the inheritance papers. "Mr. Vale, I strongly advise you to sell immediately. That property has a history." Ghost, the Belgian Malinois, who'd served 2 tours with Marcus in Kandahar, pressed against his leg. The dog's amber eyes scanned the busy street, alert to every shadow, every sudden movement. Even here, miles from any battlefield, Ghost never stopped being a soldier. Neither did Marcus, not really. The hypervigilance, the nightmares, the way his pulse spiked at the sound of a car backfiring, those were souvenirs he'd carried home in his bones. They'd been homeless for 3 weeks now, ever since the landlord evicted them for missed rent. Marcus's disability checks barely covered food, let alone the rising cost of their cramped apartment. His medication for PTSD was expensive. Therapy was a luxury he couldn't afford. And his children, his beautiful, resilient children, deserved better than sleeping in the truck or rotating between shelters that smelled of desperation and disinfectant. So, when the lawyer called about an inheritance, Marcus had allowed himself a sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, the universe was throwing him a lifeline. The truck's engine coughed to life, sputtering in protest against the cold. Daniel climbed into the passenger seat while Lily settled in the back with Ghost, her arms wrapped around the dog's thick neck. Ghost tolerated the affection with stoic patience, his tail thumping once against the worn upholstery. "Where is it?" Daniel asked, buckling his seatbelt. "About 2 hours north. Place called Ravenna Heights." Lily piped up from the back. "Is it pretty?" Marcus glanced at the grainy photo the lawyer had included. The mansion loomed in black and white, a sprawling Victorian structure with turrets and gabled windows, ivy crawling up its sides like grasping fingers. The image was old, faded, the edges yellowed with time. He couldn't tell if it was beautiful or foreboding. Maybe both. "It's big," he said carefully. "We'll fix it up together." The drive took them through winding roads that climbed into the hills, away from the city's noise and grime. Snow began to fall, light at first, then heavier, blanketing the world in white. The trees grew denser, their branches forming a skeletal canopy overhead. Ghost sat upright, nose pressed to the window, breath fogging the glass. As they crested a final hill, the mansion emerged from the storm like a ghost ship breaking through fog. Marcus's breath caught. Blackwood Estate was massive, a 3-story behemoth of dark stone and weathered wood. Its windows were shattered or boarded up, its once grand porch sagging under the weight of neglect. The turrets that had seemed elegant in the photo now looked like broken teeth against the gray sky. The iron gate at the entrance hung crooked on its hinges, the words Rossini barely visible beneath layers of rust. "Whoa!" Daniel breathed. Lily leaned forward between the front seats, eyes wide. "It looks like a haunted house." "It's not haunted," Marcus said, though his voice lacked conviction. He pulled the truck through the gate and up the long, overgrown driveway. Snow crunched under the tires. The mansion seemed to loom larger with every foot they traveled, its shadow swallowing them whole. When they finally stopped, Marcus sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. Ghost whined softly, sensing his unease. "Stay close to me," Marcus said, turning to face his children. "And don't wander off. We don't know what condition this place is in." They climbed out into the cold, their breath misting in the air. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the faint scent of wood smoke and something else, something metallic and old. Marcus pulled a flashlight from his pack and led the way up the crumbling stone steps. The front door was unlocked. That alone sent a chill down his spine. He pushed it open slowly, the hinges shrieking in protest. The beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a grand foyer coated in dust. A chandelier hung crookedly from the ceiling, its crystals dulled with grime. The walls were lined with faded portraits, their subjects' eyes seeming to follow as they entered. Ghost stepped inside first, nose to the ground, tail low. He sniffed the air, then the floor, moving in slow circles. His body language was tense, alert. "What's he smell?" Lily whispered. "Probably just mice," Marcus said, though he knew better. Ghost's training went deeper than rodents. The dog was tracking something, evaluating threats, doing the job he'd been born to do. They moved through the mansion slowly, cautiously. The rooms were cavernous and cold, filled with furniture draped in white sheets like sleeping giants. The floors creaked beneath their feet, every step announcing their presence. In the kitchen, Marcus found cabinets, stocked with expired canned goods, and a sink crusted with rust. In the library, books lined the walls from floor to ceiling, their spines cracked and faded. And everywhere, there were signs of Vincent, a coat still hanging on a hook, a pair of glasses on a side table, an empty whiskey bottle beside a chair near the fireplace. Marcus hadn't known his brother-in-law well. Vincent had distanced himself from the family years ago, disappearing into this mansion like a hermit retreating from the world. But standing here now, surrounded by the remnants of his life, Marcus felt a pang of sadness. What had driven Vincent to live like this? What had he been hiding from? "Dad, look." Daniel's voice pulled Marcus from his thoughts. His son stood at the base of a grand staircase, pointing upward. The stairs were wide and sweeping, the kind that belonged in a palace, not a forgotten estate. But what caught Marcus's attention was the way Ghost stood at the bottom, staring up into the darkness, ears pinned forward. The dog growled, not a playful growl, not a warning, a threat. Marcus's pulse quickened. He'd heard that sound before, in alleyways in Kabul, in moments when the air turned electric with danger. "Everyone stay behind me," he said, his voice low and firm. He ascended the stairs slowly, flashlight sweeping back and forth. The second floor was darker than the first, the windows here completely boarded up. The air smelled stale, heavy with mildew, and something else he couldn't quite place. Ghost stayed at his side, muscles coiled, ready to spring. They passed room after room, each one emptier than the last. But, when they reached the end of the hallway, Marcus stopped. A door stood ajar, light spilling through the crack. Not flashlight light, lantern light. Someone was inside. Marcus's hand instinctively moved to his hip, where he used to carry a sidearm. But he wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a father, unarmed and vulnerable, standing in a strange house with his children behind him. Ghost pushed past him and nosed the door open. The room beyond was small, almost cozy compared to the rest of the mansion. A fire crackled in a stone hearth, casting warm shadows across the walls, and sitting in a chair beside the fire, a glass of wine in her hand, was a woman. She looked up as they entered, her expression unreadable. She was striking dark hair pulled back into a loose bun, sharp cheekbones, eyes the color of espresso. She wore a long black coat over dark jeans and boots, and there was something about the way she held herself, poised and alert, that reminded Marcus of soldiers he'd served with, people who knew how to move through danger without flinching. "You must be Marcus," she said, her voice smooth and deliberate. Marcus stepped protectively in front of his children. "Who are you?" "My name is Isabella Rossini." She took a sip of wine, her gaze never leaving his. "Vincent was my uncle, which, I suppose, makes us family." The name hit Marcus like a punch. Rossini. The same name rusted on the gate outside. The same name whispered in the lawyer's office with a mix of reverence and fear. "I didn't know Vincent had any other family," Marcus said carefully. "He didn't advertise it." Isabella set down her glass and stood, her movements graceful and controlled. "And I didn't come here to contest the inheritance, if that's what you're worried about. I came to warn you." "Warn me about what?" She stepped closer, and Marcus noticed the way Ghost didn't growl at her. Instead, the dog sat, watching her with something close to respect. "This house," Isabella said quietly, "is not what it seems, and there are people who will do anything to get inside." "What people?" Her eyes flicked to the children, then back to Marcus. "People you don't want your kids around. People who knew Vincent and what he was hiding." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then let me be clear." Isabella's voice dropped, taking on an edge sharp enough to cut. "My uncle worked for the Cosa Nostra for 30 years. He laundered money, brokered deals, kept secrets that powerful men would kill to protect. And when he tried to walk away, they made him disappear right here, in this house." The room seemed to shrink around Marcus. His pulse pounded in his ears. The lawyer didn't mention. The lawyer didn't know. Isabella crossed her arms. Or maybe he did, and he just wanted to wash his hands of it. "Either way, you need to leave. Tonight, before they realize you're here." Daniel spoke up, his voice small but defiant. "Who's they?" Isabella looked at the boy, and something softened in her expression. "Men who don't forgive debts. Men who believe this house holds something that belongs to them." "And what is it?" Marcus demanded. "What are they looking for?" "I don't know," Isabella admitted. "But Vincent spent his last years tearing this place apart, trying to hide something. He left me a message before he died, told me not to come here, but I couldn't stay away." The fire crackled, filling the silence. Marcus wanted to dismiss her as paranoid, delusional. But the intensity in her eyes, the way she moved like someone used to danger, it reminded him too much of himself. "We just got here," he said quietly. "We have nowhere else to go." "Then you're putting your children in danger? I've kept them safe this long." "Against what?" Isabella's voice rose, sharp and urgent. "Against the mafia. Against men who kill without hesitation. You're a veteran, Marcus, not a miracle worker." Ghost growled softly, responding to the tension in the room. Marcus stepped forward, closing the distance between them. I don't know who you are, or what you want, but this house is ours now. If people come looking for trouble, they'll find it. For a long moment, Isabella held his gaze. Then, slowly, she nodded. All right, she said. Then I'll stay. To help you. I don't need. Yes, you do. Her voice softened, but the steel remained. You don't know what you're up against. I do. And if you want to keep your kids alive, you'll let me show you. Marcus wanted to argue, to send her away. But something in her eyes, something fierce and protective, stopped him. Fine, he said. But you stay where I can see you. Isabella's lips curved into the faintest smile. Deal. Outside, the snow fell heavier, burying the estate in white, and somewhere in the darkness beyond the trees, headlights flickered to life. They were already being watched. The fire had burned low by the time Marcus finally convinced the children to sleep. He'd found an upstairs bedroom that seemed relatively intact. No broken windows, no water damage, just layers of dust that he swept aside with an old broom. Daniel and Lily huddled together on a moth-eaten mattress, wrapped in every blanket Marcus could scavenge from the house. Ghost lay at the foot of the bed, his massive body a warm, protective barrier. Marcus lingered in the doorway, watching them. Lily's small hand clutched her brother's sleeve, even in sleep. Daniel's face, still so young despite the hardness trying to creep into his eyes, was finally peaceful. For a moment, Marcus allowed himself to believe this could work, that they could make a life here, away from the cold streets and indifferent shelters, that they could be safe. But Isabella's warning echoed in his mind, sharp and unrelenting. He found her downstairs in what must have once been a study. She'd lit several candles, their flames casting dancing shadows across the walls. A leather-bound journal lay open on the desk in front of her, its pages yellowed and brittle. Vincent's? Marcus asked, stepping into the room. Isabella glanced up, nodding. I found it hidden in the fireplace upstairs. He was meticulous about documenting everything, every transaction, every meeting, every threat. Marcus moved closer, his eyes scanning the neat handwriting that filled the pages, names he didn't recognize, dates spanning decades, amounts of money that made his stomach turn. How deep was he in? Marcus asked quietly. Deep enough that leaving wasn't an option. Isabella turned a page, her finger tracing a line of text. He started young, doing favors for a family in New York. Small things at first, delivering packages, keeping watch. But he was smart, Marcus. Too smart. They promoted him, pulled him deeper, until he was managing millions of dollars in dirty money, and he couldn't walk away. Men like Vincent don't just walk away. Isabella's voice was heavy with something that sounded like grief. They either die in service, or they run. Vincent chose to run, and this house, this fortress, was supposed to protect him. It didn't. No. She closed the journal, her jaw tightening. They found him anyway. Marcus pulled out a chair and sat across from her. The candlelight softened the sharp angles of her face, but it couldn't hide the pain lurking beneath. You loved him, Marcus said. Isabella's eyes met his, and for a moment, the mask slipped. He raised me after my parents died, taught me everything I know, and when the family came calling, he kept me out of it. Sent me away? Told me to build a different life. She laughed bitterly. I tried. But you can't escape blood, can you? Marcus thought of his own children sleeping upstairs, of the legacy of trauma he was terrified of passing down. No, he agreed. You can't. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared burdens settling between them like fog. Why are you really here? Marcus asked. You could have walked away. Let the estate rot. Let me figure this out on my own. Isabella studied him, her gaze searching, assessing. Because Vincent's last message to me wasn't just a warning, it was a plea. He said there was something in this house worth protecting, something that could bring down the people who killed him, and I owe it to him to finish what he started. Even if it gets you killed? Even then. Marcus leaned back, exhaling slowly. He recognized the look in her eyes. It was the same one he'd seen in the mirror during his worst nights, the need for purpose, for justice, for something to fight for when the world felt like it was crumbling. I can't let my kids get caught in this, he said finally. Then help me find what Vincent hid, Isabella replied. We find it, we turn it over to the authorities, and we end this before it gets worse. And if the mafia gets here first? Her expression hardened. Then we fight. Ghost's sudden bark shattered the quiet. Marcus was on his feet instantly, adrenaline flooding his system. Isabella grabbed the journal and shoved it into her coat as they both rushed toward the stairs. Ghost stood at the top, his body rigid, ears pinned back. He was staring at the front door, a low, continuous growl rumbling from his chest. Stay with the kids, Marcus ordered, moving past Isabella. Not a chance. She fell into step beside him, pulling a small handgun from her waistband. Marcus's eyes widened. Where the hell did you get that? Family gift? She said dryly. Do you have a weapon? No. Then stay behind me. They descended the staircase together, each step creaking under their weight. The front door was still closed, but through the shattered window beside it, Marcus could see shadows moving in the snow. 3 figures. Maybe 4. They weren't trying to be subtle. Marcus's combat training kicked in, his mind cataloging exits, cover points, weaknesses in the mansion's structure. He grabbed a heavy iron poker from beside the fireplace, testing its weight. This is insane, he muttered. Welcome to my world, Isabella replied. A fist pounded against the door, the sound echoing through the empty house like a drumbeat. Marcus Vale! A voice called, thick with an Italian accent. We know you're inside. Open the door. Marcus and Isabella exchanged a glance. You know them? Marcus whispered. Recognize the voice. Dante Moretti, enforcer for the Luciano family. Isabella's grip tightened on her gun. If he's here, things are worse than I thought. Mr. Vale. Dante called again, his tone almost friendly. We're not here to hurt you. We just want to talk. About what? Marcus shouted back. Buying time. About your inheritance. About what Vincent Rossini left behind. About the debt you now owe. I don't owe anyone anything. A pause. Then laughter. Low and dangerous. See? That's where you're wrong. Vincent died with obligations. And in our world, debts pass to the next of kin. You accepted this house. You accepted everything that came with it. Marcus's blood ran cold. That's not how the law works. The law? More laughter. Mr. Vale, you're not in the law's world anymore. You're in ours. Isabella grabbed Marcus's arm, her voice urgent. We need to get the kids out. Now. But before they could move, the front door exploded inward. Not kicked, blown. Splinters and smoke filled the foyer as 3 men stormed inside, their faces obscured by shadows and intent. Ghost launched himself down the stairs, a missile of fur and fury. He hit the first man squarely in the chest, teeth sinking into fabric and flesh. The man screamed, crashing backward. Marcus swung the poker, catching the second intruder across the shoulder. The man grunted, staggered, but didn't go down. Isabella fired twice, the gunshots deafening in the confined space. One of the men dropped, clutching his leg. Upstairs! Isabella screamed. Get the kids! Marcus didn't hesitate. He bolted up the staircase, taking the steps 3 at a time. Behind him, he could hear Ghost snarling, Isabella shouting, the chaos of combat unfolding in brutal, frantic seconds. He burst into the bedroom. Daniel was already awake, Lily in his arms, both of them pressed into the corner. "Dad!" Daniel's voice cracked. "We're leaving." "Now!" Marcus grabbed Lily, hoisting her onto his hip. "Daniel, stay behind me. Don't let go." They ran. Down the hallway, toward the back staircase Marcus had spotted earlier. Behind them, footsteps thundered. Shouts. In Italian. Another gunshot. They hit the kitchen, and Marcus kicked open the back door. Cold air rushing in like a slap. The snow was deeper here, but he didn't care. He plunged into it, his children clinging to him as he ran toward the tree line. Ghost appeared at his side, blood on his muzzle, panting hard. The dogs circled them protectively, guiding them deeper into the woods. Behind them, the mansion erupted in more gunfire, and somewhere in the darkness, Isabella Rossini was fighting alone. Marcus stopped, chest heaving, torn between the instinct to keep his children safe and the unbearable knowledge that he was leaving someone behind. "Dad?" Daniel's voice was shaking. "What do we do?" Marcus looked down at his son, at his daughter's terrified face, at the loyal dog who'd followed him through hell and back. And he made a choice. "We survive," he said, "no matter what." The forest swallowed them whole, darkness pressing in from all sides. Marcus's lungs burned as he pushed through the snow. Lily clutched against his chest, Daniel stumbling beside him. Ghost ranged ahead, his pale fur barely visible against the white landscape, guiding them deeper into the trees. Behind them, the mansion glowed orange through the branches, not from windows, but from fire. "Dad, stop!" Daniel gasped, doubling over. "I can't." Marcus halted, his own breath ragged. He set Lily down gently, though she refused to let go of his jacket. His mind raced, calculating distances, threats, options. Every instinct screamed at him to keep running, to put miles between his children and the violence erupting behind them. But Isabella was still in there. Ghost circled back, whining softly. The dog's muzzle was dark with blood. Not his own, Marcus realized. He'd hurt someone badly. "Good! Listen to me," Marcus said, crouching to eye level with his children. "I need you both to stay here with Ghost. Don't move. Don't make a sound. Can you do that?" Daniel's eyes widened. "You're going back." "I have to." "Dad, no. She saved our lives tonight." "Daniel?" Marcus gripped his son's shoulders. "I'm not leaving her to die." Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "What if you don't come back?" The question pierced him deeper than any bullet could. He pulled both children close, pressing his forehead against theirs. "Ghost will protect you, and I will come back. I promise." It was a promise he had no right to make, but he made it anyway. He stood, stripped off his heavy coat, and wrapped it around Lily, then moved to Ghost. The dog watched him with those intelligent amber eyes, understanding passing between them without words. Marcus had given this command before, in dustier, bloodier places. "Guard," Marcus said firmly, pointing at the children. Ghost moved immediately, positioning himself between Daniel and Lily and the direction of the mansion. His body became a wall, immovable and absolute. Marcus turned before he could second-guess himself and ran back toward the burning house. The journey felt longer in reverse. Every step weighted with dread. As he burst from the tree line, the full scope of the disaster became clear. Flames licked from several first-floor windows. The front door hung at an angle, splintered and smoking. And in the snow-covered driveway, 2 SUVs sat idling, their headlights cutting through the smoke like searchlights. He counted 4 men outside, maybe more inside. Marcus's hands were empty. weaponless. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and running on nothing but desperation and a promise he couldn't break. He circled the mansion's perimeter, moving low and fast, using the shadows and smoke as cover. His military training kicked in: assess, adapt, act. A lifetime ago, he'd cleared buildings in Kandahar with a team at his back and air support overhead. Now, he had nothing but rage and the fading echoes of who he used to be. The back entrance was still open, smoke billowing out into the night. Marcus pulled his shirt over his nose and mouth and slipped inside. The kitchen was chaos. Overturned furniture, shattered glass, bullet holes pocking the walls. The fire hadn't reached here yet, but smoke hung thick in the air, stinging his eyes. He grabbed a kitchen knife from the floor. Not much, but better than nothing, and moved toward the sound of voices. They were speaking Italian, rapid fire, and angry. He caught fragments, enough to understand. They were looking for something, tearing the place apart. And they hadn't found Isabella yet. Marcus crept through the smoke-filled hallway, every nerve screaming alertness. He passed the study where he and Isabella had talked less than an hour ago. The desk was overturned, Vincent's journal gone. A figure emerged from the smoke ahead, one of Dante's men, coughing, distracted. Marcus moved without thinking. He grabbed the man from behind, arm around his throat, applying pressure to the carotid. The man struggled, clawed at Marcus's arm, but Marcus held firm, counting seconds. 8, 9, 10. The body went limp. Marcus lowered him to the floor and took his gun, a Beretta, familiar weight in his hand. One round chambered, safety off. He checked the magazine. 11 bullets. It would have to be enough. He found Isabella on the second floor. She was pinned behind an overturned bookshelf in the library, exchanging fire with 2 men positioned at the doorway. Her face was smudged with ash, blood trickling from a cut above her eyebrow, but her hands were steady as she aimed and fired. Marcus flanked right, using the smoke as cover. He dropped the first gunman with 2 shots to the center mass, training overriding thought. The second man spun toward him, but Isabella's bullet caught him in the shoulder before he could fire. He went down hard. The sudden silence was deafening. Isabella's eyes found Marcus through the smoke, wide with disbelief. "You came back!" "Your shocked tone is really flattering," Marcus said, moving to her side. She laughed, a short, breathless sound that might have been relief or hysteria. "Your kids, safe." "Ghost has them!" He pulled her to her feet, noticing the way she favored her left side. "Are you hit?" "Grazed." "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. He could see the pain tightening her features, but there wasn't time to argue. "We need to move," Marcus said. "This whole place is going up." "Not yet." Isabella grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Vincent's message?" It said the attic. "Whatever he hid, it's in the attic." "Isabella, we don't have time." "This is why they're here, Marcus. This is what they'll keep coming for until they have it." Her eyes blazed with desperate intensity. "We get it now, or we spend the rest of our lives running." Marcus wanted to argue, to drag her out of the burning mansion and never look back. But he saw the truth in her words. Men like Dante Moretti didn't give up. They hunted until they had what they wanted, or everyone involved was dead. "Where's the attic access?" he asked. Relief flickered across Isabella's face. "3rd floor." "East wing!" They ran. The staircase to the 3rd floor was narrow and steep, the air thicker with smoke. Marcus could hear the fire below, a living thing consuming the mansion from the inside out. His eyes burned. His lungs screamed for clean air. The east wing was a maze of closed doors and peeling wallpaper. Isabella kicked open door after door until she found what she was looking for. A small room, empty except for a ladder leading to a trapdoor in the ceiling. "There," she gasped. Marcus climbed first, shoving the trapdoor open. Cold air rushed down, a blessed relief after the suffocating smoke. He pulled himself into the attic and reached back for Isabella. The space was larger than he expected, running the length of the wing. Moonlight filtered through gaps in the roof, illuminating dust motes and forgotten furniture shrouded in sheets. And in the center, impossible to miss, stood a massive antique safe. "Oh my God," Isabella breathed. "He actually did it." Marcus approached the safe slowly. It was a beautiful piece of craftsmanship. Solid iron, ornate scrollwork, a combination lock that looked older than he was. "Do you know the combination?" Marcus asked. Vincent would have used something meaningful. Isabella knelt in front of it, her fingers hovering over the dial. "His birthday?" "No." "My mother's birthday?" She tried several combinations. None worked. Below them, a crash echoed through the house. Voices shouted. They were running out of time. "Think," Marcus urged. What mattered most to him? Isabella closed her eyes, and Marcus watched emotions flicker across her face. Grief, frustration, desperation. Then something shifted. Her eyes snapped open. "The day he saved me," she whispered. She spun the dial with newfound certainty. Left, right, left again. The safe door swung open. Inside were stacks of documents, bound with rubber bands and labeled with dates. Hard drives, USB drives, photographs showing men in expensive suits shaking hands with men Marcus recognized from news reports, politicians, judges, businessmen, and beneath it all, a single ledger, its leather cover embossed with gold letters, Famiglia Luciano. "Holy shit," Marcus breathed. Isabella pulled out the ledger with trembling hands. She flipped through pages filled with names, amounts, dates, decades of criminal transactions documented with meticulous care. "This is it," she said. "This is everything. Every bribe, every murder for hire, every dirty deal the Luciano family has done for 40 years. Vincent was building a case against them," Marcus realized. He was trying to make amends. Isabella's voice cracked. "Before they killed him." A sound from below, footsteps on the third-floor landing. Marcus grabbed everything he could carry, shoving documents and drives into his jacket. Isabella did the same. The ledger pressed against her chest like something sacred. "The roof?" Marcus said. "There has to be a way out through the roof." They found it in the corner, a section where the boards had rotted away, creating a gap large enough to squeeze through. Marcus went first, then reached back to pull Isabella up. The roof was steep and icy, the wind cutting through their clothes like knives. Below, the driveway glowed with headlights and firelight. Marcus could see Dante Moretti now, a tall figure barking orders at his men. "This way," Isabella said, moving along the ridgeline with surprising agility. They reached the far side of the mansion, where the roof met a lower section. Marcus lowered himself down first, then caught Isabella as she dropped. They were 20 feet above the ground, but there was a trellis, rotted and questionable, but their only option. "You first," Marcus said. "Together," Isabella countered. They went down side by side, the trellis creaking ominously 10 feet from the ground. It gave way. They hit the snow hard, the impact driving the air from Marcus's lungs. For a moment, he couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then Isabella was pulling him up, and they were running again. Into the woods, toward his children, toward Ghost. They found them exactly where Marcus had left them. Ghost's tail began wagging. The moment he spotted Marcus, and Lily launched herself into her father's arms with a sob of relief. "I told you I'd come back," Marcus whispered against her hair. Daniel stared at Isabella with open curiosity. Is she coming with us? Marcus met Isabella's eyes over his daughter's head. They were filled with exhaustion, pain, and something else. Something that looked like hope. Yeah, Marcus said. She is. They moved quickly through the forest, putting distance between themselves and the mansion. Ghost led the way, his nose to the ground, finding a path Marcus never would have seen. The snow had stopped, leaving the world crystalline and silent. After an hour of walking, Isabella stumbled. Marcus caught her. I'm fine, she insisted, but her face was pale, her breathing labored. You're not fine. Let me see. He pushed aside her coat, and his stomach dropped. The graze she'd mentioned was deeper than she'd admitted, a furrow across her ribs, still bleeding sluggishly. It's not that bad, Isabella said, but she swayed on her feet. Marcus looked around desperately. They were miles from any town, from any help. Dawn was still hours away. There, Daniel said, pointing. Is that a cabin? Through the trees, barely visible, was a small structure. Marcus's military mind immediately catalogued. The risks could be occupied, could be a trap, but Isabella was fading, and his children were exhausted. Stay here with Ghost, Marcus ordered. I'll check it out. The cabin was abandoned, its door hanging loose on rusted hinges. Inside was sparse, a single room with a fireplace, a few pieces of broken furniture, decades of neglect. But it was shelter. Marcus returned for the others. He got a fire going, while Daniel helped Lily out of her wet clothes. Isabella sank onto the floor near the hearth, her face gray in the firelight. First aid kit, Marcus said to no one in particular, then laughed bitterly. Right, like we have one of those. Use this. Isabella pulled a flask from her jacket. It's not medical grade, but it'll do. Marcus took it, expensive whiskey, by the smell, and knelt beside her. This is going to hurt. Everything hurts, she said. Do it. He cleaned the wound as gently as he could. But she still hissed in pain, her hand gripping his wrist hard enough to leave marks. When he was done, he used strips torn from his shirt to bind her ribs. Thank you, Isabella said quietly. Their faces were close, the firelight casting shadows across her features. Marcus became suddenly, acutely aware of her. The curve of her jaw, the determination in her eyes, the way she'd fought beside him without hesitation. You could have run, he said. When they came, you could have left us. So could you, Isabella replied. But you came back. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither could name. Then, Lily's small voice broke the spell. Daddy, are the bad men going to find us? Marcus pulled away from Isabella, the spell broken. He moved to his daughter and pulled her into his lap. No, sweetheart, we're safe now. Another lie. Another promise he couldn't keep. Isabella met his eyes across the fire, and he knew she was thinking the same thing. They had Vincent's evidence, decades of crimes, names, dates, enough to bring down an entire criminal empire. But they also had targets on their backs now. Dante Moretti wouldn't stop. The Luciano family wouldn't forgive. We should rest, Marcus said. We'll figure out our next move in the morning. Daniel and Lily fell asleep quickly, exhausted beyond endurance. Ghost curled between them, ever vigilant, even in rest. Marcus sat with his back against the wall, the stolen gun in his lap, watching the door. Isabella shifted closer, wincing at the movement. You should sleep, Marcus said. So should you. Someone needs to keep watch. Then I'll keep watch with you. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. Outside, wind whispered through the trees, carrying the faint smell of smoke from the burning mansion miles away. Why did you really stay? Marcus asked finally. The truth. Isabella was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, Because Vincent raised me to believe in something more than survival. He made mistakes, terrible ones, but in the end, he tried to make it right. I owe it to him to finish what he started. Even if it kills you? Even then. She paused. What about you? Why did you come back for me? You could have kept running, kept your children safe. Marcus thought about his answer carefully. Because I've lost too much already. My wife, my career, my peace of mind. I couldn't lose my humanity too. Isabella's hand found his in the darkness. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was steady. We're going to get through this, she said. Together. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Marcus wanted to believe her. He wanted to trust that justice would prevail, that the evidence in Vincent's safe would be enough to keep them alive. But he'd seen too much of the world's darkness to have faith in fairy tales. Still, as he sat there holding Isabella's hand, his children sleeping safely nearby, ghost standing guard Marcus allowed himself a moment of hope. Maybe they wouldn't just survive this. Maybe they'd actually win. Outside, dawn began to break over the mountains, painting the snow in shades of gold and pink. And somewhere in that vast wilderness, hunters were gathering, preparing for the chase. But for now, in this small cabin with a dying fire and borrowed time, they were safe. For now, they were together, and that would have to be enough. Dawn broke cold and unforgiving, light bleeding through the cabin's cracked windows like a wound opening. Marcus hadn't slept. His body ached from the night's violence, but his mind refused to rest. Cataloging threats and calculating odds that never improved, no matter how many times he ran the numbers. Isabella stirred beside the dying embers, wincing as consciousness brought pain flooding back. She touched the makeshift bandage at her ribs, then met Marcus's eyes across the ash-gray light. "You didn't sleep," she said. "It wasn't a question. Neither did you. I was pretending." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Trying not to worry you. Too late for that." Ghost lifted his head from where he lay between the children, ears rotating toward the door. Marcus tensed immediately, hand moving to the gun at his hip. But the dog's posture relaxed after a moment. Whatever he'd heard wasn't an immediate threat. Daniel woke next, blinking against the pale light. His gaze went immediately to his father, seeking reassurance Marcus wasn't sure he could give. "We should move," Isabella said, pushing herself upright with visible effort. "They'll be searching." "You can barely stand," Marcus countered. "We need to get you to a hospital." "And lead them straight to us?" "No." She shook her head firmly. "We use what Vincent left us. We end this." Marcus moved closer, lowering his voice so the children wouldn't hear. "You're talking about going to war with the Luciano family. These aren't street thugs, Isabella. They have reach, resources, people in every agency that's supposed to protect us. I know what they are." Her voice was steel, wrapped in silk. "I was raised by one of them, remember? I know their weaknesses too. And what weakness is that? Pride." Isabella's eyes gleamed with dangerous knowledge. "Men like Dante, like the entire Luciano hierarchy, they believe they're untouchable. That arrogance is a crack we can exploit." Marcus wanted to argue, but he saw the truth in her words. He'd fought men like that overseas, commanders who believed their rank made them bulletproof. They always fell the hardest. "What's your plan?" he asked. Isabella pulled Vincent's ledger from her jacket, its leather cover worn smooth by her uncle's hands. "We don't run. We don't hide. We give them exactly what they want. That's suicide." "No." She opened the ledger, revealing pages of meticulous records. "It's justice." Vincent spent 3 years copying every transaction, every bribe, every murder. He sent duplicates to 3 different lawyers with instructions to release everything if he died under suspicious circumstances. Marcus's pulse quickened. Did they? Vincent didn't trust anyone completely. The lawyers had pieces, not the whole picture. This, she tapped the ledger, is the master key. But there's something else. Something Vincent told me before he sent me away. What? He said the real power wasn't in the records. It was in the names of the people the Luciano family couldn't touch. Federal prosecutors, FBI agents, even a few mob bosses from rival families who'd been trying to bring them down for years. Vincent kept a separate list insurance, he called it. People who'd move heaven and earth for this evidence. Where's the list? Isabella's hand moved to a silver chain around her neck, pulling it from beneath her shirt. A small USB drive dangled from the delicate links. He gave it to me the last time I saw him. Made me promise I'd only use it if there was no other choice. Her fingers closed around the drive. I think we're there. Lily stirred, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Daddy, I'm hungry. The simple statement fractured the intensity of the moment, reminding Marcus of what truly mattered. Not revenge. Not justice. His children, cold and hungry, and trusting him to keep them safe. I know, sweetheart. He moved to her side, brushing hair from her forehead. We'll find food soon. I have granola bars, Isabella offered, pulling 2 crumpled packages from her pocket. Not much, but thank you. Marcus took them, the simple kindness cutting through his defenses. This woman who'd fought beside him, bled beside him, was now feeding his children with the last of her supplies. As Daniel and Lily ate, Marcus and Isabella stepped outside into the crystalline morning. The world was devastatingly beautiful. Snow-draped pines, mountains rising like cathedrals against an impossibly blue sky. It seemed impossible that violence could exist in such serenity. I need you to understand something, Marcus said quietly. If we do this, there's no going back. My kids will be in danger. Your kids are already in danger, Isabella replied. The moment you inherited that mansion, the moment Vincent's blood became theirs, they were marked. We can run for the rest of our lives, always looking over our shoulders. Or we can fight, finish this, and give them a real future. What if we lose? Then we lose together. She turned to face him fully, and Marcus saw the depth of conviction in her eyes. But I don't intend to lose. Ghost emerged from the cabin, padding over to press against Marcus's leg. The dog had been his anchor through the worst days after the war. The nightmares that felt more real than waking. The moments when the world compressed into a tight, airless space he couldn't escape. Ghost had always known how to pull him back. What do you need from me? Marcus asked. Trust. Isabella's hand found his. And maybe something more. The moment hung between them, charged with everything unsaid. Marcus was acutely aware of her fingers intertwined with his, the vulnerability in her expression. The way the morning light caught gold in her dark hair. Isabella. I know. She squeezed his hand once, then released it. Now isn't the time. But when this is over, if we survive. Marcus's throat tightened. He'd loved once, built a life with Claire that tragedy had torn apart. The thought of opening himself to that pain again terrified him more than any bullet. But looking at Isabella, fierce, damaged, fighting for redemption just like him, he realized some risks were worth taking. When this is over, he said, we'll talk. A genuine smile transformed her face, brief but radiant. Then the warrior returned, steel sliding back into place. We need a phone, she said. And we need to move before Dante's people find this cabin. They hiked for 2 hours, following a creek that Ghost seemed to instinctively know would lead them toward civilization. The children were remarkably resilient. Daniel helping his sister over difficult terrain, both of them trusting their father to guide them through. They found a small town nestled in a valley, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where strangers stood out like blood on snow. Marcus's first instinct was to avoid it, but Isabella shook her head. We need supplies, transportation, and communication. We can't do this alone. They approached carefully. Ghost held close on Marcus's improvised leash. The general store sat on Main Street, its weathered sign promising, "Everything you need." Marcus prayed that was true. The woman behind the counter looked up as they entered, her expression shifting from welcoming to concerned, as she took in their appearance, torn clothes, ash-stained faces, Isabella's carefully hidden limp. "Lord have mercy," she breathed. "Are you folks all right?" Marcus opened his mouth, a lie ready, but Isabella spoke first. "Our car went off the road last night. We've been walking since dawn." The story flowed smoothly, believably. "We need to call for help." The woman, her name tag read Dorothy, immediately moved into action. Of course. Phone's in the back. And let me get some hot chocolate for these babies. When's the last time you ate?" Her kindness was almost painful. Marcus found himself blinking back unexpected emotion as Dorothy fussed over Daniel and Lily. Wrapping them in warm blankets she pulled from somewhere, pressing steaming mugs into their small hands. Isabella used the phone while Marcus kept watch through the store's front window. His military training never fully shut off. Scanning for threats, marking exits, calculating response times if danger arrived. "It's done," Isabella said quietly, returning to his side. "I reached one of Vincent's contacts. FBI, clean record. Been trying to build a case against the Lucianos for 15 years. He's sending someone to meet us. Can we trust him?" Vincent did. That has to be enough. They waited in the store's back room, Dorothy bringing food and asking no questions that mattered. Marcus watched his children eat, watched color return to their cheeks, watched Lily's smile emerge as Dorothy's golden retriever padded over to make friends with Ghost. For a moment, he let himself imagine a different life. One where they could stay in a town like this, where the biggest threat was a hard winter, where his daughter could smile without fear shadowing her eyes. But that life wasn't theirs. Not yet. The FBI agent arrived 3 hours later. Agent Sarah Chen was compact and efficient, her expression carefully neutral as Isabella spread Vincent's evidence across Dorothy's kitchen table. But Marcus watched her eyes widen as she processed the scope of what she was seeing. "My God," Chen whispered. "This is. Do you understand what you have here?" "Enough to end them," Isabella said. "Enough to end organized crime in 6 states. Chen pulled out her phone. "I need to make calls. We'll need protection for all of you. Witness security. Federal prosecutors." "No," Marcus interrupted. "No safe houses, no protective custody where we disappear into the system and hope they don't find us." Chen frowned. "Mr. Vale, these people will kill you. They'll kill your children. You need—" "What we need," Isabella cut in, "is to end this decisively. Vincent's evidence doesn't just damn the Lucianos. It implicates their entire network: politicians, judges, police. How many people in your own agency are on their payroll, Agent Chen?" The question hung heavy. Chen's silence was answer enough. "We do this publicly," Isabella continued. "Press conference, every news outlet we can reach. We make it impossible for them to silence us without confirming everything we reveal." "That's insane," Chen protested. "You'll be exposing yourselves." "We're already exposed," Marcus said. "At least this way. We control the narrative." Chen studied them both for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "All right, but we do this my way. Secure location, Federal marshals, the whole apparatus. If you're going to paint targets on your backs, we'll make damn sure those targets are well defended. The press conference was scheduled for the following evening. Chen arranged everything with military precision. A federal building in the city, multiple security checkpoints, agents Marcus didn't know standing guard at every entrance. Isabella spent hours preparing, reviewing Vincent's notes, rehearsing her statement. Marcus watched her transform from wounded fugitive to avenging angel, her voice steady as she practiced naming names, detailing crimes, exposing decades of corruption. "You don't have to do this," he told her as evening approached. "Chen's people could testify. You could disappear. Start over. Somewhere safe." "Safe?" Isabella laughed bitterly. "I've never been safe, Marcus." "Not really. Vincent tried to protect me, sent me away, but his world followed me anyway. At least this way, I'm choosing to face it. You're choosing revenge. I'm choosing justice." Her eyes met his, fierce and uncompromising. There's a difference. Was there? Marcus wasn't sure anymore. His own desire to protect his children, to punish those who'd threatened them, was that justice or just violence dressed in prettier clothes? The conference room filled quickly. Reporters, cameras, federal officials with expressions ranging from skeptical to stunned. Marcus stood at the back with his children, Ghost at his side, while Isabella took her place at the podium. She was magnificent. Her voice never wavered as she detailed the Luciano family's crimes. She named politicians who'd taken bribes, judges who'd thrown cases, murders ordered and executed with impunity. She held up Vincent's ledger like a holy text, its pages damning an entire criminal empire. And then she played her final card. "My uncle, Vincent Rossini, spent 3 years compiling this evidence. He died trying to make amends for the life he'd lived." Isabella's voice cracked slightly. The first sign of the emotion she'd kept locked away. He believed in redemption. He believed people could change, could choose to do what's right, even when it costs them everything. She pulled the USB drive from her neck, holding it up to the cameras. This contains names of federal agents, prosecutors, and law enforcement officials across 6 states who've been working to bring down organized crime despite threats to themselves and their families. People who believed in justice when everyone around them was for sale. Marcus's breath caught. It was brilliant. By naming the good alongside the corrupt, Isabella wasn't just exposing the Lucianos, she was rallying their enemies, giving clean cops and honest agents a rallying point. Protection in numbers. "The Luciano family has operated in darkness for 40 years, Isabella concluded. "Today, we bring them into the light. And we dare them to try to silence us now." The room erupted. Questions shouted from every direction, cameras flashing, agents moving to secure the evidence Isabella had just made public. Chen appeared at Marcus's side, her expression grim. "Congratulations," she said. "You've just declared war." "No," Marcus replied, watching Isabella field questions with steel-edged grace. "We just finished one." The threats came within hours. Phone calls, anonymous messages, even a car that circled the federal building 3 times before agents intercepted it. But Isabella had been right. The public exposure made them impossible to kill quietly. And the names on Vincent's USB drive rallied exactly as she'd hoped. Indictments came swiftly. The Luciano family's leadership was arrested in coordinated raids across 3 states. Dante Moretti was found dead in his apartment, an apparent suicide that no one quite believed, but everyone accepted. The empire that had seemed untouchable crumbled in a matter of days. Through it all, Marcus kept his children close. They stayed in a safe house Chen provided. Federal marshals at every door. Daniel and Lily adapted with the resilience of children who'd already survived too much. turning it into an adventure rather than acknowledging the danger. Isabella visited daily. Her injury healed slowly, but something else healed faster. The wounds Marcus couldn't see, the guilt and grief she'd carried since Vincent's death. Each time she told their story, each interview she gave, each testimony she delivered, he watched pieces of that burden lift. 3 weeks after the press conference, Chen informed them it was over. The last of the Luciano associates have been processed, she said. There are still loose ends, people who'll hold grudges, but the organization itself is finished. You're free to go. Free. The word felt strange, alien. Marcus had been running for so long from the war, from trauma, from the life that had collapsed after Claire died, that he'd forgotten what freedom felt like. That evening, he found Isabella standing on the safe house's small balcony, watching the sun set over the city. Ghost had followed her out, leaning against her legs in his subtle way of offering comfort. So, Marcus said, joining her. What now? Isabella smiled, and it reached her eyes this time. I don't know. I've spent my entire life reacting to Vincent's choices, to the family's demands, to the need to survive. I have no idea who I am when I'm just free. Maybe that's the adventure. Maybe. She turned to face him fully. What about you? Where will you go? Marcus thought about the condemned mansion, now rubble and ash, about the life they'd had before, marked by poverty and desperation, about the future stretching ahead, uncertain, but no longer terrifying. I think, he said slowly, we'll find somewhere quiet, somewhere the kids can be kids, somewhere I can figure out how to be just a father again, not a soldier. That sounds nice. You could come with us. The words escaped before Marcus could second-guess them. The kids love you. Ghost loves you. And I. He trailed off, suddenly uncertain. Isabella stepped closer. And you? Marcus looked at this woman who'd fought beside him, who'd risked everything for justice, who'd shown his children that strength and kindness weren't mutually exclusive. He thought about Claire, about the love he'd lost, but he also thought about the future, about second chances, about the fact that surviving wasn't the same as living. I think, he said carefully, that I could love you, if you gave me time. Quote, time, Isabella repeated softly. That's something we finally have. She kissed him then, gentle and careful, like they were both made of glass. When they pulled apart, Marcus saw tears on her cheeks, not of sadness, but of relief, of hope, of a future neither had dared imagine. Inside, Lily's laugh rang out as Daniel tried to teach Ghost a new trick. The sound was pure and bright, untainted by the darkness they'd survived. We should go in, Isabella said, but neither of them moved. In a minute, Marcus replied, pulling her closer. They stood together as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, as the city below came alive with lights, as Ghost pressed against them, both this family that had been forged in fire and blood, that had survived when survival seemed impossible. Marcus had spent years believing his war never truly ended, that the battles would follow him forever. But standing here, holding Isabella's hand, listening to his children's laughter drift through the open door, he finally understood that wars did end, and sometimes, when the smoke cleared and the dead were buried, and the truth finally came to light, there was something beautiful waiting on the other side. Not perfection, not the absence of scars or memories or pain, but love, family, purpose, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Chen approved their relocation 3 days later. A small town in Montana, far from the cities where the Luciano family's shadow still lingered. They had Vincent's estate, what remained after legal fees and restitution, enough to buy a house, with land where Ghost could run, and the children could discover what childhood looked like without fear. Isabella came with them, not as a guest or guardian, but as something more, something still being defined, still growing, still learning to trust after a lifetime of betrayal. The house they chose was simple, not a mansion, not a monument to wealth or power, just a home with a porch where they could watch the sunset, rooms that filled with laughter instead of shadows, and enough space for all of them to heal. On their first night there, Marcus tucked Lily into bed in her new room. She held tight to his hand, her eyes already drifting closed. "Daddy?" she murmured. "Are we really safe now?" Marcus thought about all the lies he'd told, all the promises he'd broken. But looking at his daughter's peaceful face, at the home they'd built from ashes and courage, he knew this promise was different. "Yes, sweetheart," he whispered. "We're really safe." And, for the first time in years, he believed it. Outside, Isabella stood with Daniel and Ghost, all three of them silhouetted against the Montana sky. Marcus watched them through the window. This impossible family, this gift born from tragedy, and felt something tight in his chest finally loosen. He'd lost so much. His wife, his career, the pieces of himself left behind in distant deserts. But he'd also found something he never expected, a second chance, a new beginning, love. In the ruins of war. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.